Okay, so I finished reading Delta Force, right? And it was a good book for the most part. But my problem with it is he left out the part where Chuck Norris comes into the mission. What is that about? Okay, now that we got that joke out of the way, let's go ahead and get a little serious. Excuse me. Um, so like I said, I finished Delta Force Delta Force, the U.S. Counterterrorism Unit, and the Iran Hostage Rescue Mission by Colonel Charles A. Beckwith. So, what did I think of this book, and what is it about, and did I like it, and such and such? Let's go ahead and get into the review. So, what is Delta Force about? So, Delta Force follows Colonel Beckwith, who was a Green Beret in the 1960s, early 60s, I think, probably late 50s too. It talks about how he got influenced. He was, excuse me, he was kind of like a foreign exchange student. He went to England and he trained with the SAS, even going as far as going on a mission with them in Malaysia, I believe. Can't quite remember, but um, his mission, or not his mission, he got influenced by the SAS. He was like, man, why doesn't the U.S. Army not have anything like this? They had the Green Berets, of course. They had the Airborne. They didn't have the Rangers anymore, but so he came back to the States. I think there was this kind of pride in thinking top dog America. A lot of the generals, when he would go up to him and tell him, "Hey, I think we should make this new special forces unit that goes and does crazy stuff, right?" And the generals were like, "Yeah, no, get out of here. What? Don't you get we're the superior force, not the British? Come on now." So fast forward, he goes into Vietnam. He's finally given that chance to, not by the big brass, but by the generals there. Like, hey, you want to make your experimental unit? Go ahead. He does. He calls it Delta. Um, Talks about the formation of the unit, having to deal with regular army units. Interestingly enough, have you ever read "We Were Soldiers Once and Young" or seen the movie with Mel Gibson? Uh, Hal Moore, Colonel Hal Moore, was the focal point and also the writer of the book I just mentioned. He even talks about dealing with him in the First Cavalry. Interestingly enough, doesn't didn't really have a nice thing to say about him, which was interesting. Um, Eventually, he gets wounded. He comes back to the United States. He's still trying to get. Well, he kind of gave up on trying to get the unit made, so that he's just following orders, working in the special forces training, and then eventually the Lufthansa, I believe, plane heist. Basically a passenger plane with. Oh, jeez. Don't mind that. A passenger plane that was in Germany got hijacked in the air, and it flew to some southern African country. I'm not sure which one. I actually want to do research on that for a novel I want to write, but um, this unit basically impressed the U.S. military a lot. They're like, wait a minute, why don't we have something like that? And what the unit I'm talking about is GSG-9. If you play in Rainbow Six Siege, you probably know. I think IQ in the game, IQ is one, Blitz is one, Jaeger and Bandit. That's the GSG-9 and represented in that game, but we're talking about real life here. Um, so the colonel is finally given the task of. By the way, there's a picture of him. He was finally given the task. Hey, make this unit, and he literally had to fight from the ground up. Like, hey, I need all this. I need to do this. Uh, the Rangers were now a thing, and he had to say, hey, I got to recruit from the Rangers, paratroopers, Green Beret. And it's interesting to learn about the Army and how it functions during peacetime, because this was essentially peacetime. So naturally, the population in the Army is down. Money isn't really needed because there's no war and no possibility, well, besides the Cold War, but naturally the U.S. military doesn't fund him that much at first. He has to fight for it. Eventually, he does finally start getting his unit the way he wants. Kind of a Green Beret, not Green Beret, counter-terrorist unit. So today we think Navy SEALs, especially after the Bin Laden raid. I guess back then the Navy SEALs weren't really thought of that much as like counter-terrorists, or at least maybe he just did not know about them that well. He just heard of them. Anyways, he makes the unit. He gets tested a lot, especially by the people that don't want it to be successful, like the I think he talked about the the officer in charge of Ranger Battalion would go as far as when they went to test the unit, they would give them like regular Army stuff to train with, or regular Army to test with, and he's like, these guys are not trained for that regular Army stuff. They're trained for dressing up in civilian clothes, going into enemy countries, or going and setting up raids on hostage situations. They're not made for long distance combat. Would be like trench warfare and all that stuff. And then finally their first test comes along, and that is the Iran hostage crisis, Tehran hostage crisis. If you don't know, the government that we liked got overthrown, and now the government of Iran today took over, and the college students in Tehran took the the U.S. embassy's staff and employees hostage. So the book tells of how Delta prepared for it. Delta Force, he calls it Delta throughout the book. He never really, he once or twice refers to it as Delta Force, and really it's from when he's talking about other, characters, but almost other military figures trying to say, or just calling it by what they call it. So he goes into detail of how they prepared. He also goes into detail, if you don't know the history, how the mission failed. Man, it's different from the movie. The movie kind of really kind of gets it wrong. Big surprise. Especially 80s action films. I don't think you could use 80s action films as a reference for how things really are. Anyways, the book kind of ends after the hostage crisis. I don't know what he did afterwards. I think he went into he kind of invented the archetype of SOCOM. If you don't know what SOCOM is, it's like this big bubble of all these special forces units, like Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Green Berets, Rangers, support units like Air Force, Special Forces, Air Force. I just got interested. The Army units that flew in the Navy SEALs during the Obama raid. What? Osama raid. I got curious of who they were. They're not talked about that much. Imagine being asked, hey, so we need you to go ahead and fly into this enemy territory, not enemy territory, into this neutral territory. And if you get shot down or something goes wrong and they capture you, we're probably not going to be able to get you out anytime soon. Also, you got to do some pretty crazy stuff while you're flying. You know, you are flying some counter-terrorist units to go do some stuff. So he goes and kind of jump starts that system. And then, from what I read, I did look him up. I was just curious. It seems he did, Colonel Beckwith did pass away in '95. I'd be curious to see what his take on 9/11 and the war on terror would have been. That would have been an interesting subject matter, because obviously his time, or when he was commander of this unit, terrorism was still kind of popping up. There were hijackings and such, but there wasn't like 9/11 type stuff happening. We didn't really, so it's interesting to get both a perspective of that time, of the infancy of like that sort of terrorism, the formation of a special forces unit in the regular army, and the struggles of building a unit from scratch. You don't think about it, but you literally, I think the fat electrician said it best when he was talking about the I forget the name of the number, of course, the division made up of old draftees, 30-year-olds and above. It's like starting a factory across town and sending your employee or two over there and just having them start from scratch. No blueprint, you just gotta kind of do it. Anyways, I think we could go ahead and move on to what I thought of the book. Let's go ahead and do that. So, what did I think of Delta Force? I'll show it again. What I think of Delta Force. By the way, yes, I know. What's up with your dust cover? Okay, I got it off thriftbooks.com, and I don't know. I don't really need a book to be fantastic. I just need to be able to read the words in it. Like you could see. I don't know if you could pick it up. Like, oh, look at that. The quality of the book is not that great, but the words inside are perfect. So, but we're talking about the contents of the book, not my physical copy, right? So, I don't think I'm going to do stars anymore on my channel, just because I feel like, I don't know, I feel wrong for rating stuff. Like, I do rate stuff on Goodreads, and if you really want to see what I'm rating stuff, go ahead and follow me on there. But I'd rather say what I liked about it, which I definitely did like the detail of how how this unit was formed, the detail on how the mission went down. I don't know how much he left out, because of course I think this was written in '96, and like the raid, I'm calling it a raid. The rescue mission was 1980, so how much was released, how much is released, it'd be interesting to know if there's a lot of stuff still hidden. It probably is, but I liked it. Wasn't hard to read. He's a decent writer. I'd say maybe every once in a while it gets a little overdrawn, and sometimes you just want the chapter to end. But other times the chapters are pretty short, for that matter. I don't know if you want to talk about the consistency of chapter length. Like, if it's too long, does it get boring? If it's too short, is there enough information in it? But yeah, I'd say writing's good. Subject matter is good. I want to say I believe him. I don't know if he's lying or not. Probably would have to look up more research about it. So what didn't I like about it? Let's talk about it. So, what I didn't like about it, I think I said it does get a little drawn out sometimes, and sometimes it gets a little boring. Sometimes the Vietnam stuff got a little too over detailed. Like maybe a soldier or veteran probably would like this a lot more, or would like that a lot more. Whereas I'm just like a layman. I was never in the military, so I don't really think that hard in the detail about like the little stuff as they probably do. It's kind of drilled into them. But for the most part, I didn't have any problems with this book. I would say, if you really want to know my Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars. Just I took off that 1 star because it did get boring at parts. But in the end, if someone were going to ask me, should I read this book? Well, it depends. If you're really interested in the subject matter, I'd say yes. And there is multiple subject matters in this. There's Vietnam, there's special forces units, counter-terrorist units, military systems, a lot of of course, the Iranian hostage crisis, which was a pretty major thing in American history. It kind of helped influence the American people into voting out Jimmy Carter for. I almost said Ford. What is my brain going to? Voting out Jimmy Carter for Reagan. And it is interesting to get the military view of that event. Kind of hear about the outside of it, but you don't really hear about like what really went wrong with the raid itself. So I'd say if you're interested in that type of stuff, read it. I'm not going to force it on you. I'm never going to force a book on you. Maybe my novel, my novel Black Monday. It's on Amazon. If you got Kindle Unlimited, you could read it for. Well, technically you're not reading it for free, but you have access to it. Back to this book. Yeah, I'd recommend it for someone that's interested in military stuff, interested in special forces and all that. And right, so let's go ahead and wrap up this. So that was my view of this book. Hope you don't mind if I went into the history of it. It was definitely an interesting thing for me. And of course, like I said, if you're interested in military stuff, I recommend reading it. Especially if you're interested in 20th century and the formation of what we look at now as counterterrorism stuff. And the way this was like the architect of the U.S. counterterrorist unit. Because before that, we didn't really have one. Like, as cool as Rangers are, as cool as Green Berets are, I don't know if you'd want to. Like, maybe today they could do it, but back then, I don't think they were really trained for going into buildings and trying to rescue people from getting assassinated or executed. So, yeah, that was my review. If you want to support the channel, don't be afraid to subscribe. If you want to leave a like and comment down below. Let me know if you read this book. What do you think of it? Do you have any questions? If you want to follow me on Twitter, I recommend doing so. That will help you with knowing when new stuff is coming out. Goodreads, if you want to see what I'm reading. If you're curious what's making me tick mentally. And then, if you're interested in my book, if you like zombies, if you like survival, if you like crazy twists that will make you go, holy crap, go ahead and check out Black Monday again. And I will try to talk to you guys Friday. I'm working on 3 books right now and reading them, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get one done by Thursday. today's right now is Tuesday night, so I got maybe a day and a half to finish a book, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do so. Thinking about it now, I'm not sure if I will be able to. Sorry about that. If I don't, I think I'm gonna improvise and do something. We'll see what I do, and I will talk to you hopefully then. Stay safe. Congratulations to the American viewer. You were able to do what you were able to act on your right yesterday. If you're watching this on the release day, if you're watching this on the release day, yesterday was voting day. I went and voted. I don't know my stickers somewhere over there, but and hopefully, if you for you, hopefully maybe your person won. Sorry if it didn't. That happens. Don't think of it too much as the end of the world yet. Let's see a couple weeks within to the scenario. I guess scenario. That's an interesting word to use. Anyways, live your life, enjoy it. Try to stay safe if you could, and have a good rest of your day, rest of your life. If you don't want to come back to the channel, and bye bye.